Sometimes the hardest thing in life is knowing when to let go, and it's true of your dynasty teams too, right? Sometimes you got to look at these guys that maybe in the past they've helped you win a championship, but it's not the past anymore. It's time to let go. We got 5 players that we think they're probably done helping you in dynasty ever again, and if you can get rid of them right now, you need to for whatever you can get. And let's start, unfortunately, we saw Monday night, everybody saw the injury with Tyreek Hill, of course, that terrible knee injury. We know he's out for this season, but look, it could be worse than just a season here for this guy. So there are going to probably be people out there, John, who, are going to tell themselves, Tyreek Hill, he can come back next year. He can be great. Why do you think Tyreek Hill is pretty much done for fantasy?
This is, still a slightly tough one for me because we've seen some veteran wide receivers have resurgences very late in their careers, but we have to be honest here. The writing was already on the wall for Tyreek Hill. Last year was his worst year in every single category when it comes to fantasy and statistics since 2019. And 2019, he missed 5 games, right? So we already knew going into this year that things were going to be a bit shaky potentially. The consensus is already lower on Tyreek Hill, but this injury just looks really bad for the future for Tyreek Hill. This puts really his entire career in jeopardy. Now, his agent is reporting he's going to try and come back and play at the start of 2026. That would be his 10th year in the league. He'd be age 32, coming off of a gruesome injury. This just does not look good for Tyreek Hill. He already has a ton of off-the-field issues going on. I think if you own Tyreek Hill, whether you're a contender, you're a rebuilder, whatever your roster looks like, if you're able to go out there on the trade market and flip him for anything that benefits your dynasty roster, I think the time to do so is now, because if we kind of let this wait and get too close to next year, we could at any point, at any day, get some sort of news that is just completely derailing to Tyreek Hill's career. So I say go ahead and move him while you potentially still can, even though you're selling him basically at an all-time low.
I agree. You got to take whatever you can get for this guy. I think the most recent example we have of this is Nick Chubb. Remember a couple of years ago, that brutal knee injury, and people were like, he can come back, he can do it. And he has not come back from that at all. Why would Tyreek Hill be able to do this at 32 years old? And look, some of the doctors that I follow on Twitter are saying this could potentially be a 2-year recovery. He's going to need multiple surgeries here, to get back to even full health. So, yeah, if you can get anything for Tyreek Hill right now, I think you got to take it. And then what about Nick Chubb? I just mentioned Nick Chubb. Let's talk about Nick Chubb, because look, for the start of the season here, he had a little bit of value. He was kind of getting the run, but it may be coming to an end for Nick Chubb, because we saw the Woody Marks takeover this week. Is this now Woody Marks' backfield, and is there still any hope for Nick Chubb?
We looked to last week, right? Week 4, Woody Marks had the better yards per carry, was able to score a touchdown, better receiving yardage total, was able to score a receiving touchdown. And if that wasn't the Woody Marks takeover, I think it's going to happen this week against Baltimore, because this defense looks like complete Swiss cheese. And really with Nick Chubb, right, he just never won an aging veteran at the running back position on your roster, especially with the injury history in previous years with Nick Chubb. Plus, he's on a 1-year contract. And we look to the last 2 seasons, right? He's played in 8 or less games in the last 2 years. So the upside lies with Woody Marks. If you're a Woody Marks truther, you've been holding on to him, you feel great right now. If you own Nick Chubb, this is really just a piece of your dynasty roster that is slowly dying. I don't think that there is a ton of value left for Nick Chubb long-term in his career. And I always say it, when it comes to the running back position in Dynasty, it's always replaceable. So I have a lot of concerns if I was for some reason relying on Nick Chubb as an RB2 or a depth piece, flex option on a contending team. I think that the writing is on the wall here for the end of Nick Chubb's career.
Yeah, you look at this Texans roster, pretty much up and down. It's youth, right? You got young wide receivers, a young quarterback, good young players on the defense. Nick Chubb was just kind of like a fill-in running back here, and his spot has been taken by a good young running back in Woody Marks. You got to think, Nick Chubb will probably still get some work this year, but for fantasy, it's not going to be there. If there's a contender in your league who's desperate at running back and thinks Nick Chubb can still be that guy for him, trade him to that guy right now while you can. Now, speaking of another once great player, no longer great, Cooper Kupp. A lot of people thought going to Seattle could save Cooper Kupp this year. Sam Darnold, no target competition here. Doesn't look like it's going to happen for Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with Cooper Kupp is like, I made one of the best years at the wide receiver position ever in 2021. You break it down a little bit further. I mean, he was the wide receiver 5 in 2019. Outside of that, he's never finished higher than the wide receiver 23 in fantasy. So a lot of his like fantasy value is really tied to that outstanding Super Bowl run in 2021 with the Rams and everything he was able to do in that season. But we look to the last 3 seasons, he hasn't even played in more than 12 games in a single season. So once again, the writing was already on the walls here for Cooper Kupp. I mean, if Sean McVay doesn't want you anymore in his offensive system, then I think that's saying a lot, right? So I don't really know what you could potentially trade Cooper Kupp for. Hopefully, if you guys own him, maybe he has a little bit of a run, like 2 or 3 nice games this year where you're able to maybe flip him for like a 3rd-round pick or something. But ultimately, when it comes to Cooper Kupp, I think, unfortunately, even his value as like a dart throw flex player is just not going to be there for the remainder of his career.
Yeah, and you talked about it. I mean, the last 2 years prior to this year, 737 yards, 710 yards, only averaging 40 yards per game right now. And that includes that week 2 game where he had like 90 yards. And you take that out, he's doing nothing here. So, yeah, if there's somebody in your league who sees the name Cooper Kupp and thinks, hey, this guy can be like a serviceable flex for me, I would take like a 4th or 5th round. I would take literally anything for Cooper Kupp right now, to be honest, if I had him. And I might take almost anything for Travis Kelce right now. Although I will say, like, in defense of Travis Kelce, he's at least scoring some fantasy points, and he's at a position that it's hard to get fantasy points here. But unless I'm an actual contender and Travis Kelce is like the only tight end I have, I really don't want Travis Kelce on any of my dynasty teams. Do you?
No, I completely agree. Really, the only way that I would value Travis Kelce in any way in Dynasty right now is if I was a true contender and I was lacking depth at the tight end position. And like you said, to be fair to Kelce, I mean, kind of like the supreme reign that he's had at the tight end position, it's just over, right? But it doesn't mean he's like awful or anything. And people looked at last year, they're like, Kelce's like so washed and whatever, but still the tight end 5 in full PPR last year, still on pace right now to be a top 15 tight end, which isn't saying a whole lot, but he is still having some sort of production in this offense, and we know he has that chemistry with Patrick Mahomes. But I think the bigger issue with Kelce is that this is almost undoubtedly his last year playing in the NFL. I think everyone agrees with that, and I think that's more than likely what's going to happen. I think last year, arguably, if they had won the Super Bowl, probably would have been Kelce's last year. So the value is just quickly tanking here. So if you are a rebuilder or somewhere in the middle and you own Kelce, especially if there are teams who are straight up contending and have a lack at the tight end position, now is the time to try and flip him for really whatever you can get, because past this year, he's just going to be nothing on your roster. He's probably not even going to be on your roster. I think this is just the end of what was one of the most dominant runs at the tight end position from a fantasy perspective. I mean, just keep in mind, since 2016, Travis Kelce was the tight end 3 or better in every year, excluding last year in 2024. And he was a tight end 1 like in almost every single one of those seasons. So very, very dominant run. But I think, unfortunately, it's just coming to an end.
Yeah, this exactly. It's like if you feel strongly that you can win a championship and you don't have any good tight end depth outside of Travis Kelce, fine. Roll with Kelce this year and hope it's good enough. But in any other case, trade this guy to the team who is going to make a championship run and needs tight end help. Because otherwise, like you said, you're not even going to have this guy on your roster next year. And then, is it fair to ask, like Jerry Jeudy, I mean, how much longer is this guy even going to be on an NFL roster? I mean, you look at Jerry Jeudy, you take out that stretch of games last year where he played with Jameis Winston, he has not been very good his entire career, and the start of the season this year has been horrible. In fact, he's been worse than bad, because I would argue he's probably created 3 or 4 interceptions just by himself, by dropping passes or letting passes go through his hands. Like, is there any way you can have Jerry Jeudy on one of your fantasy teams, your dynasty teams, and feel good?
The biggest issue with Jerry Jeudy is, what quarterback is he tied to? Like, now we're going to get Dylan Gabriel in here. Maybe he somehow manages to save Jerry Jeudy, but the quarterback, overall ties to Jerry Jeudy just have not been good in recent memory outside of that stretch with Jameis Winston. And exactly like you said, is the exact point I would make. Jerry Jeudy's just never really been productive outside of that stretch. He was okay in 2022, was a wide receiver 22, but outside of that, he has never, and outside of last year as well, those 2 seasons, he's never finished better than the wide receiver 50 in full PPR scoring. And it's like, what are we really holding on to here? He's not on an extremely long-term contract with the Browns. And now in the short term, as long as he's tied to the Browns, what are we even getting at the quarterback position? We truly don't know. Is it going to be Shadur Sanders? Is it going to be Dylan Gabriel long-term? Are we going to see Deshaun Watson somehow return into the mix? Are we going to see Joe Flacco get a start again because the rookies don't play well enough? We just don't know. It does not feel like this team has a long-term solid outlook at the quarterback position. So I just don't feel great about Jerry Jeudy, who once again has really lacked true production throughout the course of his young career.
Yeah, and don't forget, even last year before Jameis took over, he was the wide receiver 57 in fantasy. Like, he was dropped on almost every league. I mean, maybe not in Dynasty, but in redraft leagues, and then Jameis took over. Right now, he's the wide receiver 59. I mean, unless Jameis Winston somehow becomes the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, yeah, we're probably not seeing Jerry Jeudy have fantasy relevance. So again, there's a team out there that still believes in Jerry Jeudy. They can have him. Give me almost whatever you want. I'll take anything for Jerry Jeudy right now. So there you go. There's 5 players that we think are pretty much done having any fantasy value in your dynasty leagues. But you know what does have value? Watching these videos all season long. We're going to be dropping a video every week of the season. And of course, tons of content during the off season. So if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do that. And also, if you want to see the videos we've already put out, check out this video right here where we talk about some players you probably don't want to buy low on.